There's something slightly odd about being in the Mexican jungle, the sea nowhere in sight, kitting up in scuba gear. But my guide, Leal, promises me an underwater adventure like nothing on Earth.
Let's see how you feel, okay? But we're gonna start in the shallow area, and then let's see.
Our plunge point looks like a swimming hole, but around here they call this a cenote. And it's a gateway into an ancient labyrinth.
Just walk on the water.
Beneath the surface, it's breathtaking. We're dwarfed by the enormous caverns, immersed in a dazzling natural light show.
I can tell you that the very first dive of my life was in one of these places. And 45 minutes, it changed completely all my life.
This is the largest underground river system in the world. Rainwater filters through the unique limestone geology of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, flooding an incredible network of caves. They seem to go on forever, all lit from the cenotes, the windows to the sky.
We are talking about this witnessing this perfectly clear water, as clear as air, where you have unlimited visibility. We always say 100-meter visibility and plus. This is unlimited visibility. This is perfect visibility.
This aquifer is a vital water supply for Mexicans. The underground rivers nourish vast tracts of jungle above. They flush out the coastal mangroves, feeding the reef. And they're teeming with wildlife, extraordinary biodiversity that makes close encounters like this one possible.
So, how you like it?
It's amazing. How big would you say that crocodile was?
I don't know, maybe $1.20 meters, maybe a little bit more. It's very young, maybe a year, maybe a little bit more. But it's gonna grow bigger, huh?
How big will it get?
I don't know if it's a species. I think it is. Maybe if it's a male, will go for more than 3 meters, 3 to 4 meters. If it's a female, 2 to 3 meters. But it's really nice. He looks very healthy, or she looks very healthy.
The Yucatan Aquifer is a priceless, interconnecting asset for Mexico. The heart of a fragile ecosystem. But for how long? Runaway development on the surface is tainting this pristine place. Some of the cenotes are being contaminated with wastewater and even sewage.
Maybe in the short term, they are going to make the big money. But in the medium term and the long term, they are going to pollute this, they are going to destroy this, and we're not going to have anything unique anymore. It's going to be lost.
This is Cancun. Just a quick flight from Miami, it's the #1 tourist destination in the Caribbean. In 4 short decades, a small fishing village has been transformed into a mega hotel strip stretching for 20 kilometres. Huge, all-inclusive resorts serve up everything a sun-loving holidaymaker could wish for. Waves whenever you want, dolphins on demand, endless entertainment.
El show de Michael Jackson, tributo al señor, si no se lo pierdan, Michael Jackson, 8 de la noche aquí en tu casa, Moon Palace, Sunrise, oh yeah.
The money these people spend is the main source of revenue for the state government here. Raul Marufo represents the tourism department. How much bigger can Cancun get?
I don't think bigger is better. I believe that Cancun, a little over 30,000 hotel rooms, is not going to grow much larger.
Cancun isn't just overbuilt, it's run out of room. And with just about every square metre taken, developers are moving south, keen to carve up the rest of the coastline known as the Riviera Maya, the lid of the Yucatan Aquifer. Would you want to avoid replicating this level of development further south on the Riviera Maya?
Not necessarily, because Cancun, as it is today, it is extremely successful. And not wanting to develop other areas, it may just imply that this was not correct.
This is a very destructive model. The business is to build hotels. And for that, you need these loans that come from Europe, which are very cheap. I mean, the cost of money is very cheap. Then the cost of labor is also very cheap. So there's not a single incentive for preserving what you have. You keep moving south, and that's it. So if you think about it, what we are doing here is we are giving subsidies to bankers in Europe, and we are paying the subsidy with our natural capital.
To see what's really going on, you have to take to the air. Diver Leal is eager to see the area from above. Resort after resort is built where mangroves once were. Mangroves that provided a crucial source of nutrients for the marine ecosystem and protected the beaches in hurricane season.
They are out of control completely. Look at that design over there. They cannot be modifying that much the wetlands and the aquifer over there.
In a place with almost no natural surface water, golf courses glitter with water features. The roofs of the underground rivers have been gouged out to create artificial lagoons. How have they created those channels?
They are just digging and modifying all what are the wetlands and the aquifer over there. It is worse than I imagined.
But from up here, the most dramatic scar on the landscape is a quarry. Forests have been wiped away and the limestone extracted to make cement. In places, the developers have dug so deep they've crashed into the aquifer, exposing the previously subterranean rivers, spoiling the water.
Square kilometers of these places of the jungle completely destroyed, completely dead. They're just like silly, pathetic lagoons, squared lagoons in the middle of the jungle. I think that people, investors, Mexican government, companies see this place like El Dorado. They want to make a lot of money here and they don't have any boundaries, and we need boundaries for this grid.
Modern-day developers weren't the first to go high-rise here. This is where the ancient Maya civilization did some of its most striking work. The Khobar Pyramid is the tallest on the Yucatan Peninsula. It's a long way up, not a great place to forget your climbing boots or to discover you might have a fear of heights. Well, this is a spectacular view, but at more than 40 metres high, it's also kind of terrifying. This is much harder than scuba.
That's great.
Now there's just the slight problem of getting down. It proves to be a slow process. For the Maya, the Yucatan coast was prime real estate. They first settled this trading port 1,500 years ago. This is the ruins of the ancient city of Tulum. Back then all the roads were paved white and the buildings would have been brightly painted and decorated with murals. But even now, all this time later, you can still feel the grandeur of the place and imagine what it must have been like at its height. Tulum flourished in the 13th century, rising to fill the void as other Maya cities declined and were abandoned. Like prehistoric sentries, iguanas guard what's left. Beneath one ruin, there's a blocked-up cenote. Once a source of fresh water for the city, now it's salty and undrinkable.
Entonces, para nosotros estos lugares tienen una gran importancia. Esta es la lágrima de nuestra Madre Tierra. Por lo tanto, también es nuestra vida. Una vida que dio origen a muchas...
There are thought to be about 2.5 million Maya descendants in Mexico today. Gabriel Masson is one of them.
Yo lo único que puedo decir en esa parte es que si nuestros abuelos mayas regresaran, pero si los mayas regresaran en esta tierra, créanme que se mueren de tristeza. Se morirían de tristeza de ver cómo los grandes urbes, desarrollos, la forma como hemos tratado este cenote.
For Gabriel's ancestors, cenotes were sacred. He says the spiritual significance of these places has been lost.
Pero hoy para nosotros es una verdadera pesadilla, porque se crean instituciones de gobierno, instituciones de ambiciones, grandes empresas que quieren desarrollar grandes lugares y nos sentimos de una manera amenazados.
My teachings, the underworld that's how you enter the underworld, is through the cave system and the cenotes.
Canadian hotelier Michael Halle is trying to tread lightly, promoting sustainable tourism.
Cancun at one time looked just like Tulum today. This whole coast was exactly the same ecosystem. But what's happened over the years is mass development with no regard to the environment.
Tulum is 130 kilometres south of Cancun and about as different as can be. With almost a kilometre of Caribbean beachfront, this property is big enough to be turned into an all-inclusive mega resort, and there's commercial, social and political pressure to do it.
You know, the poverty and the unemployment in Mexico are driving people here for tourism jobs and construction jobs. So governments keep pushing the big all-inclusive development because it's easy to show, you know, a typical site that's building a 500 to 700 room hotel will employ between 7,000 and 12,000 laborers. I mean, that helps unemployment overnight.
Michael Halle believes mega resorts would be disastrous here. Yet he says developers wanting to use greener technologies have sometimes had to break the law to do it.
If you apply for a permit at the municipality, as an example, they've never heard of this technology for, you know, for black water treatment, and so then you can't get the approvals. So it's impossible. You can't get an approval for something that they don't know about or they don't understand or they've never heard about.
To really experience what the Yucatan was like before mass tourism, you have to visit Cancan. In the glow of a Mexican sunrise, it's easy to see why its name means where the sky is born. Encompassing more than 400,000 hectares, these lagoons were declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in the late 80s.
There's evidence that this channel was made by the ancient Mayans. That means this channel could be 2,000 years old.
100,000 people a year come to see this place that epitomises low-impact travel. For parts of the trip, you don't even need a boat.
Let's go downstream in Cancan style.
So how far do we travel like this then?
We're going to travel 1 kilometer far from 12, that is all this channel. But this water comes from the lagoon and to the underground rivers, to the channel, and then goes out to the sea.
It's all connected.
It's all connected through water.
places you can even see where the freshwater cenotes open directly into the salty waterway.
Look at this cenote. You can see the water coming out from the underground. This is make a unique system in the world.
Here at least, the environment coexists with sustainable tourism. But you have to wonder if there's much point protecting the lagoons without also protecting the cenotes that flow to them.
We have many towns with no water treatment, with no water care. Some of the towns, they just throw the water into the cenote, into the ground rivers. And all those rivers are interconnected. So anything that happens inland with the cenotes and with the underground rivers, it will be affecting the reserve and it will be affecting the reef out there.
Mexico is plagued by corruption. Governments have changed land titles to favour large-scale development. A few years back, a ban on destroying mangroves around Cancun was lifted long enough to approve a flurry of construction, then neatly reinstated.
To become number one, it takes some learning, and it is a learning curve, just like in anything in life.
Well, what are you doing to protect the cenotes?
I think the cenotes are protected. You have the economists who are going to be positioning themselves into growth and making money, and you have the ecologists who have their own viewpoints.
The ones that grow from the ground, they're called stalagmites. I don't think they have any idea of what sustainability means. I think the Mexican government, the Mexican authorities are hopeless, useless, very corrupt, and just interested in greed and money.
Before he fell in love with this Yucatan underworld, Luis Leal fought against another one. He was a Mexico City lawyer prosecuting crooked cops.
I know the beast from the inside. Believe me, I was part of the beast. And being there, I can tell you for certain that the government is not gonna move if we don't have somebody from outside making it move. I hope we can spread the voice.
He knows more than most what's at stake. 1,000 kilometres of caves have been mapped beneath the Yucatan so far, and Luis has been as deep as 5 or 6 kilometres inside the maze.
If you carry 6 tanks, for example, the longest I have been in a dive was maybe 7 hours, something like that.
Down here, your lifeline is a trail of string, tiny plastic arrows marking the way out.
And it's really nice, believe me. I would say that I will feel more comfortable 2 hours inside a cave. I will feel more comfortable there than in a bar or a discotheque or a football stadium. I wouldn't be there ever.
It's highly technical diving, dangerous too. While we're in Mexico, a diver drowns in these tunnels. But for Luis, exploring is a kind of meditation.
But just the experience of being there with yourself, with this darkness, in this fantastic environment, being part and navigating in the veins of the planet, the circulatory system of the planet.
In these passages, divers have discovered human remains dating to the Ice Age, 12 to 15,000 years ago when the caves were dry. Perfectly preserved here are the complete skeletons of animals we can now only imagine: giant sloths, mammoths and saber-toothed cats.
There are some places where you can see a piece of rock with a skull of a bear on top of the piece of rock, surrounded by pieces of charcoal next to a human skeleton, frozen in time.
Whereabouts is the reef?
Yes, where the water is breaking, as you can see, this is where the reef is.
So far, the effect of overdevelopment is perhaps most pronounced where the Yucatan Aquifer meets the sea, on the idyllic Mexican Caribbean. Not as idyllic as it used to be, according to oceanographer Roberto Iglesias Prieto.
Within my lifetime, I have seen a very dramatic change in the quality of the water and in the conditions of the reef.
The Mesoamerican Reef extends from Mexico to Honduras and is the world's second largest after Australia's Great Barrier Reef.
The coverage of corals that it has been reduced dramatically in the last 20 or 30 years. We used to have 30% coverage and now we have less than 10% coverage of coral. But it's very sad to witness in front of your house.
Like a doctor taking a patient's vital signs, Roberto measures the impact of mass tourism on the coral, and tests have thrown up some unusual results.
It can be very bad in terms of the amount of pollutants that we can detect. There's a study that shows, for example, the presence of these chemicals associated with the use of cocaine residues that are detectable.
So you're talking about metabolites of drugs like cocaine are showing up in the reef?
Well, in the water, by the reef, yes.
And that's coming from people using drugs where?
In the hotels? Yes.
The problem is a lack of basic infrastructure.
Here in Puerto Morelos, we don't have a sewage system. So what we have is our septic tanks. And the problem with septic tanks is that they are, when we have too much water pressure on inland, they will be flush into the reef. I mean, that's something that is not sustainable. And we need to do something about that.
Official standards for sewage treatment are so lax that hotels can comply perfectly with the law but still be polluting the water.
Really?
The Mexican laws force the developers to treat the water, just primary treatment, which is the removal of solids in suspension, and inject it to 90 meters depth. And polluted fresh water will flow to the ocean with only primary treatment. And that can be very dangerous for the reef because it contains large quantities of nitrogen and phosphorus.
There's also evidence of reverse flows in the underground rivers, meaning pollutants can drift upstream to contaminate the freshwater aquifer further inland. The hotels have elaborate filtration systems for the tourists. If the water supply is polluted, it's Mexicans who'll suffer.
This area is so rich in biodiversity that it has become literally the beachhead for the fight on sustainability. If this area goes, like several other critical ecosystems on the planet, if this area goes, you know, if the biodiversity is defeated here, then the planet is defeated.
Luis Leal's love affair with the cenotes will go on. With only 20% of the underground rivers explored, he plans to be diving for the rest of his life. But he fears without international intervention, these oases in the jungle could ultimately vanish.
The only way that we can make the government react is by telling people outside what is going on here. If you don't tell the world this, if you don't make us responsible of something that should belong to everyone, these places will be lost.